Yo, can I rap with you about something real quick? It's a question. And I need you to be as brutally honest with yourself right now. And what I want to ask you is this. How long have you been podcasting? 6 months? A year? Maybe 2? And let me guess. The downloads are still the same. Your DMs ain't popping off like you wanted them to. Nobody's buying. You're showing up every single week, but nothing is working for you. And it feels like you're standing on the edge of the Grand Canyon and you're screaming into the void. Now, what's so crazy about this is it's definitely not your content. Matter of fact, it's probably not your content. It's definitely not the microphone, and it's not the algorithm. So let's clear all of that up right now. It's your positioning. Now, today we're going to talk about why podcasters stay broke, why they stay invincible, and what they need to do in 2026. Finally break the ice, break the mold, and become that podcaster that everybody in their particular space, their niche, want to go to. Now, you stick around with me, and we're going to tap into that, all right? Let's rock out. Let's get it.
Welcome to Podcast for Profit, the show where podcasters become CEOs. I'm your host, Tony Porter, and every week I'm giving you the strategy, systems, and game you need to grow your audience, monetize your message, and build a 7-figure podcast business. No fluff, no cap, just real results. Let's get into it.
Hey, yo, what's good, fam? What's good? What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Podcast for Profits, the show where we turn podcasts into client-generating machines without all the tech headaches, without burning yourself out, and without feeling like you got to sell your soul in your DMs. Now, of course, you know who I am, and if you don't, let me explain to you who I am. I'm your host, Mr. Anthony Porter, and if you're new here, welcome to the family. We want you to be here, all right? So by welcoming you to the family, we need you to click the subscribe button. We need you to follow us on all our social media. I'll put you down. I'll put a link down below so you can do all of that. But we want to say welcome to the family, because this family is where we talk real strategies for coaches, podcasters, solopreneurs, content creators who are done playing the small game. See, we're going to go from the block to the boardroom, and that's how we move, right? You have to understand, some people stay stagnant. Yeah, stagnant. That means they stuck. It's like quicksand. You're stuck in a position you don't know nothing about. And so in order for you to get out of that, you got to figure out the way. So today's episode, this particular episode, we're going to break the barrier, break the mold, because I see this mistake everywhere that I turn to. And honestly, I made this mistake for way too long myself. See, you got to understand, I'm able to speak on these subjects because 7 years ago, I made a change. I started paying attention to what was going on, and every single day I opened my ears and my eyes to learn something else about my show. So we're going to start talking about podcast positioning, why it matters more than ever heading into 2026. Because see, when you set that goal of where you want to be, you got to have a foundation. You got to be able to start somewhere. And then we're going to also talk about why getting this wrong is the reason you're stuck. See, a lot of people don't want to say that they're stuck at the same number, the same income, the same frustration, month after month after month. They don't want to take accountability. They just want to say that they got a show. They just want to, they homeboys to keep tapping in. And when they homeboys tap in, they good with that. No, you want your podcast to be that client generating machine. So if you've ever wondered why your podcast isn't growing, guess what? This episode is definitely for you. So we're going to jump into it. We're going to get into it. And we want you to understand, no matter where you at, if you're a beginner or you are revamping your show, this is the episode for you. Now, before we go any further, a lot of people will say, he's great. Hit us with the sales pitch. Here's a sales pitch for you. Join the free school community, Solar Empire Network, so you can learn how to podcast and build and make your podcast a business. This community is free. We just ask that you do 3 things: show up, create content, and engage. And the rest will take care of itself. All right. Again, I'm going to put that down in the description. It's the free community for the Solo Empire Network. So join it. And when you join it, get in there, follow all the instructions. We're kicking it off. And if you're the first person or the 5th person, stay tuned. We want you to be in here, in this community. All right. So enough about that. Let's get into this, man, because I know time is of the essence. And we want to get you in and out and make sure everything is copacetic for you. All right. So one of the main points that I want to talk about when I was going over this, when I was researching this, when this came to mind, was you're a podcast instead of a solution. Now, I know you're like, what do you mean? Well, we're going to get into that. All right. See, most of y'all aren't positioned as a solution. You're positioned as a podcast. And when you say, what does that mean? Well, when someone asks you what your show is about, what do you say? Or I have a podcast about mindset and entrepreneurship, or I interview people about success. You're a podcast. You're not the solution. All right, cool. The problem is so do 4.5 million other shows that do podcasting. Probably about 1.4 million in the niche that we are discussing. So here's the thing. And this took me a minute to understand because I was stuck. I was like, that's what I do. I'm a podcaster. Because at first I was the Solopreneur Chronicles podcast before I rebranded it, because I was giving you the chronicles behind the scenes. And that's not what I really wanted to do. So when I rebranded, I had to make sure that you understood this is Podcast for Profit. We're teaching you how to get a podcast. We're walking you through step-by-step strategic movements in order for you to have a podcast for your business as a creator, as a coach, as a consultant, as a beginning podcaster, in order to generate an income while you sleep. And see, people don't search for podcasts. They search for solutions. And that solution is for a problem that they have. Nobody wakes up and says, you know what? Woo! A podcast about mindset. Nah, that ain't what they talking about, fam. They are not talking about that. They wake up and say, why can't I get clients? They wake up and say, how do I stop trading time for money? Or why does everyone else seem to be winning and I'm stuck over here? So everybody's winning except for me. So your podcast needs to answer one specific question. Your ideal listener is already asking this. So if you really want to understand what I'm talking about, here's a real life example. Early on, I was out there trying to be everything for everybody. And I wanted to talk about business. I wanted to talk spiritual, relationship and fitness, all of it. And you know what happened when I did all of that? Nobody knew who the hell I was. Nobody knew. No downloads were flying in off the shelf. The engagement process, crickets. The moment I took the time in the beginning and decided that I needed to niche this down, the show specifically focused on solopreneurs who wanted to turn their podcast into a client generating asset, a podcast for coaches and creators who wanted to turn their podcast or even start a podcast and turn it into a client generating asset. That's when everything shifted. When I focused on that, downloads went from the dumps and they start moving up like the stock. DMs started coming in. People knew exactly what they needed to listen for. So when you think about that, you have to think about this. Describe the podcast that you have in one sentence that includes who it's for and what the problem solves. And that's the first action step you should take. Who's this for and what does it solve? Now, another point that I want to make, and this is point number 2. Most of you all are competing instead of positioning. Now, I don't critique publicly. I sit back and I listen and I'm studying. And then I'll critique in my head and I'm like, man, they just They just got a podcast. They just all willy-nilly talking about just whatever. Most podcasters are trying to compete. They're looking at other people and what the other folk are doing, trying to be a better version of someone else's show. They copying the formats. They copying the style. Now, I get it. You see something that's what you have is you have two things. You have the shiny object syndrome and you have the imposter syndrome. Now, when you're starting out, one of those two seem to come into play. You look at the big names for inspiration, and that's natural. Like, I know a lot of people who have started podcasts and they give up because they're not doing what some of the podcasts out here are doing, like $1 million worth of game, a fourth and one podcast, the Pivot podcast, All the Smoke podcast, Drink Champs, Joe and Jada, the Joe Button podcast, the Beehive podcast. These podcasts are, some of them are in sports, some of them are in music. Pat Flynn and Amy Porterfield, they're talking entrepreneurship, side hustles, things like that. They are specifically directed towards certain individuals. And so it's natural for you to see these folks. It's natural for you to want to copy them. I emulated Pat Flynn when I started, but then I realized that I'm not Pat Flynn. So what did I have to do? I had to figure this out. Like, okay, so if I'm going to do this, let me tweak this here. But here was the problem. And here's the problem that I see with everybody. And I'm not talking about all the majors. I'm talking about the ones who are up and coming, because you have a lot that are up and coming. They haven't figured it out yet. Maybe I can help them if they want to. I'm not trying to critique. I'm not trying to make nobody feel bad. I'm not perfect. What I've learned and what I'm learning, I put to action. But most of them, when you compete, you're playing someone else's game by someone else's rules. And you're always going to lose that game because they got the head start. Then when you start positioning, you create a whole new level. You create a whole new game. And where you are, you're the only player. So let's break that down real quick. You know how many business podcasts are out there? 6 figures, digits, thousands, maybe hundreds of thousands. If you could try to compete with the big business podcast, man, you're going to be invincible. But from the block to the boardroom, that's your lane. Well, that's my lane. See, I had to figure this out. Like, I'm trying to go from what I knew and implement things that I've been taught and make it about me to help others get to that point. I'm from the block. I lived that experience. Nobody else can replicate what I've done, what I have been through. I live this life. So you have to take and make your story, your background, your unique contribution of skills and experiences and make that your positioning. That's your unfair advantage. And when people start to realize that that's their unfair advantage, then they'll understand that their podcast will go from the toilet to the penthouse. And I mean from the bottom of the barrel to the top of the ceiling. See, the one thing you have to do is you got to stop trying to be the best and just try to be the only one. Try to be the only. Don't be the best, be the only. That's what you got to do, be the only. Think about it like this, y'all. And I love this analogy. Imagine you at a party. You at a party, you kicking it, right? You having a good time. You with your peoples. Y'all sipping. Y'all dancing. Y'all doing everything y'all supposed to. There's 100 people. And in this party, they all wearing the same outfit. Now imagine you walk in wearing something completely different. Who's going to get noticed? Who's getting remembered? Who's getting talked about the next day? That's what positioning your podcast looks like. When I log on to YouTube and I sit back, because sometimes when I come in, I decompress. When I log on to YouTube and there's 5 faceless video channels all discussing the exact same thing, when there are a multitude of stories out there that can be covered, and then all of a sudden you have that one channel that pops in and they start discussing something entirely different, clear across the world. All right. When you look on TikTok, you see it. I heard recently you had the young mother and her son that got jumped by the little girls in Chicago. If I didn't see one video, I seen one. And I'm not talking about I watched the fight, because I wasn't watching it. I'm talking about the people responding. I'm talking about the people giving their opinion. I'm talking about the people who literally came out and said, hey, we want to see that little girl because she need to have her whooped. That's positioning. Now, here's another action step that I want to give you to think about and take action on. What's your from the block to the boardroom moment? What's your unique angle, your story, your perspective? That only you can bring. Now, write that down. And then guess what? Here's what I need you to do. Since we already talking about it, go inside, join the free community, podcast for profits, join the free community. And after you get inside, you introduce yourself, you tell us about yourself. All right. And you start to build this community because we want to grow the community from 0 to the first 100. Can you imagine 100 people in the same community with the same aspirations of you to build something? But once you get inside the community, there's a discussion section. And that section is, I want you to go in there and I want you to say, building my position around this. This is my block. This is my from the block to the boardroom moment. And then write in the group what that is. All right. I tell you what, when I get finished recording this, I'll be the first one. And so once you get that done, then you got to start thinking about the next point. The next point is, why are you invisible to the algorithm and to the humans? Why? That question should be asked. Why? Here's the hard truth for in 26. If you don't have a clear positioning, you're invincible on 2 levels. Level 1, the algorithm, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, they all use recommendation engines, man. They want you to be an engine trying to figure out who your show and your content is for. Who are you talking to? What is your angle? If your podcast is about a little bit of everything, then the algorithm has no idea where to put you. And it takes a minute for that algorithm to get in check. So when I switch from and rebrand it to the podcast for profits, I know my algorithm has to take a change because we are discussing how to take and help business owners, content creators, coaches, podcasters start and revamp a podcast in 2026. But you want your show to show up in the search bars. You basically are a ghost machine because nobody knows who you're talking to. But when you start positioning yourself and you make yourself crystal freaking clear, the algorithm knows exactly who needs to hear your show. And it starts working for you instead of against you. And then level 2, you're invincible to the humans. Word of mouth is still the most powerful marketing tool on the planet. But people are only referred to what they can explain. That's the only way they're going to refer something. So understand, you are invincible. If someone asks your listeners, hey, you know any good podcast, can they explain your podcast, what your podcast do in 1 sentence? Or do they have to stumble through for a long explanation? It's about business and mindset and sometimes relationships. The host is cool though. The referral guys there, they ain't got time for that. That's how they look at it. But if you say, oh, you need to check out Podcasts for Profits, it's for coaches and solopreneurs and course creators who want to turn their podcast into a client-generated machine. That's memorable, man. And that's exactly what we're doing. And it's shareable. Now it's referable. Now, I gave you 2 action steps. Here's the 3rd one. Ask 3 people who listen to your show to describe it to you in 1 sentence and see what you get. That's it. If their answers are all different, then your stuff is not clear enough. So you have to make sure you're clear. Okay. Now, point number 4 is you need to have that, what I call the mic drop framework positioning. So we're going to dive into that. I call this the clear positioning framework. Now, remind you, clear, we're going to spell it out for you. All right. So C is for client. Who you specifically are serving, not entrepreneurs, not women. Get specific. Female coaches in their first 2 years of business who are struggling to get consistent clients. All right. Then you got L for language. Now you can write this down, and I prefer that you write this down. Right? But you got L for language. What words do your ideal listener, use to describe your podcast? What words do they use to describe their problems? Use their language, not the industry jargonites. not that garbage. They don't say, I need to optimize my client acquisition funnel. They say, I need more clients. Man, sometimes being techie can drive a person crazy. So then you have E, and that's the enemy. And that main question that they want to have is, what are the thing that you're fighting against? What do you stand opposite of? What is your op? Let's say that. What is your op? For me, it's the guru complex. See, people overcomplicating podcasts and making it seem like you need a whole production team and fancy equipment to win. That's the biggest joke. Let me tell you something. For the last 3.5, 4 years, my whole production team has been one person, me. I've used Riverside.fm, me. I edit my own podcast, me. I upload my own podcast, me. I edit my clips for shorts for YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook Reels, me. All of my captions done by who? Me. I have a small Mac Mini M4. I have a Rodecaster's Duo. I have a keyboard and mouse. I have a camera and 2 monitors. One has my notes on it. If you see me glancing over a lot, I'm looking at my notes. The other is where I can see the time that I'm recording in Riverside. I can live stream. I can do everything in Riverside that I want to do. The problem is it's just me. So we talked about C for client, L for language, E for enemy. So what is the A for? All right, so the A is for aspirations. What's your dream outcome listener? What does your dream outcome listener want? They don't just want more money. Go deeper. They want freedom. They want to prove the doubters wrong. They want to build something their kids can be proud of. And then last but not least, you have R. What specific result can you or do you help them achieve? This needs to be tangible. Grow your podcast in a week. Turn your podcast into a client-generated machine that book calls while you sleep. Now, that's strong. Grow your podcast, that's weak, man. That's weak as hell. Now, when you nail all 5 of these, your position becomes magnetic. The right people will find you. The wrong people will filter themselves out. And suddenly, growth doesn't seem like pushing a boulder uphill. All right. So now, let's talk about the last point that I want to make today. And that's the positioning. Positioning is the foundation of everything. Your positioning isn't just about your podcast. It's the foundation to your entire business. Once you lay the foundation, everything goes uphill. All right. Your lead magnet needs to match your positioning, your offers. You need to match your positioning with everything that you do. Your social media content matches your positioning. Needs to match your positioning, your email list. Everything that you do, you guessed it, man. It has to be that way. When everything is aligned, you create what I call the gravity effect. Everything pulls into the same direction. Every piece of content, every episode, every post is all compounding. And that's how you want to be, man. Most businesses are built that way. For those who don't understand, I dabble into the stock market, right? And when I start to do research on certain stocks that I would either want to trade or want to invest in, like dividend stocks or ETF stocks or things like that, here's the key point that I like to make. I have to go do the research on the company. I need to know their balance sheets, their income statement, their cash flow statement. I need to know who started the company, why the company has been sold, I need to know all of that. I'm digging deep. But when I look and I see how everything compounds together, that's when my radar goes, oh, I need to get into this. But when you are fuzzy in your positioning, your brain is like scrambled eggs, man. They scattered. Everything is like scrambled eggs. It's scattered out. You're working 10 times harder for a fraction of the results. So here's my challenge to you. After this episode, take 30 minutes, just 30. That's it. Write your clear positioning down on a piece of paper. Say it out loud. Make sure it feels right. Does it feel right? Does it look right to you? Does it feel like it to you? Does it make you excited to create content around it? If yes, you're on your way. If no, keep refining it until it works for you. Now, looks like I gave you a ton, right? And I did. And if you're feeling like, okay, I get it, but how do I actually implement this? I got you. Everything I just broke down is just one piece of what I call the client-generated podcast blueprint. See, the positioning is the foundation, but you also need funnels. You also need strategies. You need a system that turns listeners into leads and leads into clients without having to live in your DMs begging for attention. In this particular magnet, this lead magnet, that's what it's what we teach. It's what I teach. Now, in order for you to get that, click the link below, join the group, join the Solo Empire Network, and start to build. See, this is a no filler, no fluff. We're not charging. The blueprint, the playbook, the whole podcast kit, all of that. That bundle itself is worth $1,997. That's a ton of information. We giving you the blueprint, the client generating podcast blueprint for free. We're giving that to you. All right. All you need to do is join the community and get in there and learn. We're giving away tons of value. We're not charging you, man. We building a community. Start from zero and start to grow. All right. So click the link below. Follow us on all our social media. Don't forget to check out the Podcast for Profits YouTube channel, because in there we drop a whole lot more knowledge. Also, we are spotlighting businesses within inside the network. Up first, we're talking about a friend of mine named Jeff Vessels. He's Vessels Plumbing. He started out as a solopreneur. He's got a 6 to 7 figure plumbing business. He retired and went back and did his own thing. He positioned himself and became a successful entrepreneur. He went from solopreneur to entrepreneur. He runs a fleet. He's doing very well. I'm proud to call him a friend. I'm really proud to call him a mentor, because I watched a lot of things that he did. He might not thought I was looking, but I was paying attention. All right. So click the link below. It's going to take you over to the group, the community. Join the community. And when you join the community, man, get in there, introduce yourself, start to learn, start to build. You never know what might pop off, man. And we just want you to gain the knowledge and enjoy. All right, man, do me a favor. Keep building, keep thriving. Let's get it. And I'm going to see y'all in the next episode, man. Peace.
Thanks for tuning in to Podcast for Profit. If you got value today, share this episode with a creator who's ready to level up. And make sure you hit follow so you never miss the moves we're making. If you're serious about turning your podcast into a business, tap the link in the show notes to join the Solo Empire Network and get the tools, coaching, and community you need. I'll see you in the next episode. Keep going.